Welcome back, everyone. This is the Oracle Decodes, the Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse from the Bible, the book of Revelation, chapter 6. Now, we're going to test out once again our very powerful discovery we just recently made of this oracle, or the real all-seeing eye. And what we're going to take a look at in this piece is decoding the four horsemen of the apocalypse. Most people know most famously from the Bible, specifically the book of Revelation in chapter 6. Most people think, of course, that the book of Revelation is about the end of the world. That's what most people think of when they think of the apocalypse. And many people think that right now is the end of times, or the apocalypse, as is interpreted from the book of Revelation. Many scholars, many Bible scholars even, have spent, in some cases, their entire lifetime trying to unlock the mysteries of the book of Revelation. And here, with this oracle that we've discovered, we're about to unlock at least chapter 6 of the book of Revelation in under 30 minutes. Most people, if they are familiar with any of this literature in the book of Revelation at all, as confusing as it is, they do know about the four horsemen of the apocalypse, and that those are signals or symbols for what is supposedly the end of the world. So amongst the viral panic, much of this is being preached as a sign from God that the end of the world is coming. While the end of the world, you're also going to learn, is also something that's been misinterpreted. So let's get right into this here. We're going to start out with, once again, a picture from Stellarium, a very powerful, free online program that you can use for yourself to verify everything that I'm going to show you. And what I'm going to show you is that chapter 6 of the book of Revelation, involving the four horsemen of the apocalypse, is not at all about what you think the end of the world being, that is. It is actually a specific way to keep a calendar, as you are about to see. So let's set up what we're going to look at first here in Stellarium. We've got it queued up for what we commonly call March 1st of 2020 at high noon, when the sun is at its zenith, or its highest point for the day. And we're going to look at everything from the perspective of, if you're living in the northern hemisphere, what's commonly called the northern hemisphere. We're also going to take the perspective of high noon, and once again reminding everyone that the stars that you're looking at in this image are above your head. If you walked outside your door and looked up in the sky, they are actually present. But of course, the light of the sun being too bright for you to see them occults them. We're looking at things from the perspective of what really occult science is all about, as you're about to learn. All right, so we're going to begin in the spring in what is commonly called the northern hemisphere, what is commonly called March 1st of 2020 at high noon. Notice that the sun is located right in the very special crossing point that we looked at in our previous video series, Jesus starring Orion and Sun. Take a look at that if you need an intro before you go ahead here. But that very special crossing point is the north-south meridian line, the green line here, and the red line being the ecliptic. So this is if you are facing due south, and you're going to look at everything known as the zodiac constellations, the moon, the sun, and all the known, what we call planets, rise from the east and set to the west, all in this band called the ecliptic, or the zodiacal belt. All right, so now that we're oriented, let's now plug into the sky story what we read from chapter 6 of the book of Revelation. And this is where the four horsemen of the apocalypse comes from. All right, so from the New King James Version of the Bible, you can read here that it says the first seal, the conqueror. Verse 1 begins, "Now I saw when the Lamb opened one of the seals, and I heard one of the 4 living creatures say with a voice like thunder, 'Come and see.' And I looked, and behold, a white horse. He who sat on it had a bow and a crown, and was given to him, and he went out conquering and to conquer." So let's plug this first breaking seal imagery into our sky story here. The first horseman of the apocalypse rides. When you take a look at the sky story, you're going to notice that right above where the sun is situated at the line of the north-south meridian line in the ecliptic is a constellation called Pegasus. Pegasus, of course, is a mythical winged horse. Many may know Pegasus and the story of Pegasus from ancient myths at this point. But let's plug in Pegasus, the constellation, and that position this time of year in what is commonly known as the Northern Hemisphere to the book of Revelation Bible verse that we just read. So start at verse 2. "And I looked, and behold, a white horse. He who sat on it had a bow and a crown." All right, so as the verse is completed, let's take a look at this imagery. He sat and had a bow. So we're looking here, take a look at the shape that the line of the ecliptic makes to the horizon of the earth. There is your bow. And where the sun is located is just below the constellation of Pegasus. And as we advance forward to the beginning of the next month, what is commonly known as April 1st of 2020 at high noon, you can see that Pegasus, the first horseman of the apocalypse, and the sun have moved even closer together as the arc of the ecliptic has risen. We're going to go forward to the beginning of the next month, commonly called May 1st of 2020. And we're going to take a look at now what the book of Revelation in chapter 6 says for our next 2 verses. The second seal, conflict on earth, verse 3. "When he opened the second seal, I heard the second living creature saying, 'Come and see.' Another horse, fiery red, went out, and it was granted to the one who sat on it to take peace from the earth, and that the people should kill one another, and there was given to him a great sword." Now that just sounds absolutely terrible, but let's plug in the imagery that we're given and all the clues in these 2 verses to our sky story once again, and what is occurring in the Northern Hemisphere on what we commonly call May 1st of 2020 at high noon when the sun is at its zenith. So notice first that the constellation of Pegasus has moved further westward and off the north-south meridian and ecliptic cross. And what you'll notice instead is a constellation rising up along the eastern horizon at high noon, and it's a constellation called Monoceros. Monoceros, known as the unicorn. Now, most people know that this is also a horse, mythical horse creature with a single horn atop its head. So let's plug in the location of Monoceros, or the unicorn, rising out of the eastern horizon on what we commonly call May 1st, so moving more into the summer months or the summer season. And let's plug in the sky story picture to the imagery, once again, that we were given with the Bible verse. Take a look just as it starts to end, saying that, "And the people should kill one another, and there was given to him a great sword." You can plug that into that single horn that sits atop the unicorn's head, and the sky story, coupled with the myth that we're given, completely makes sense as you watch the second horseman of the apocalypse ride throughout what is commonly called June 1st of 2020 at high noon. He's still on the east side of the cross of the north-south meridian line in the ecliptic, moving closer to it in what we commonly call July 1st of 2020 at high noon. We continue to watch the unicorn and this second horse of the apocalypse ride in what is commonly called August 1st of 2020, now moving past the cross of the north-south meridian line and the ecliptic, and following the unicorn's path, or Monoceros, the journey on what we commonly call September 1st of 2020 at high noon, you can see continues to descend more and more toward the western horizon. We land now to what is commonly called October 1st of 2020 at high noon, and let's take a look at the picture we're presented here. As we can see, Monoceros, the unicorn, is almost completely descended into the western horizon, and we're going to plug in the sky story picture that we're looking at with what we're given in the book of Revelation. But before we read on, I want you to notice that in the eastern horizon is a new constellation that's coming up closer to the cross of the north-south meridian line in the ecliptic, and it's a constellation called Centaurus. Centaurus is a mythical creature, once again, that is half man and half horse. This mythical half man, half horse centaur creature is not to be confused with the famous centaur Sagittarius, but it is the same creature nonetheless. So centaurs are known for their bow and arrow and hunter imagery. So as we're seeing Centaurus, not to be confused with Sagittarius, rising out of the eastern horizon on what is commonly called October 1st of 2020 at high noon in the northern hemisphere, let's see what the book of Revelation goes on to say next. Third seal, scarcity on earth. The New King James Version of the Bible reads, beginning at verse 5. When he opened the third seal, I heard the third living creature say, "Come and see." So I looked, and behold, a black horse, and he who sat on it had a pair of scales in his hand. And I heard a voice in the midst of the four living creatures, saying, a quart of wheat for a denarius, and 3 quarts of barley for a denarius, and do not harm the oil and the wine. So let's plug this verse in to what we're taking a look at here in the sky, and notice that when we're told that he holds scales in his hand, I want you to take a look at what is rising on the eastern horizon, right on the ecliptic arc, is a constellation called Libra, otherwise known as the scales. So these would be the scales in the third horseman of the apocalypse hands. Now, also going back to the imagery we're given in the book of Revelation as verse 6 ends, notice that it's a lot of harvest time or autumn imagery, right? With a quart of wheat, 3 quarts of barley, do not harm the oil and the wine. Wine, of course, is made after the grapes are harvested in autumn. So as we take a look at everything that the sky is showing us and the book of Revelation has revealed to us in these 2 verses, you can see that the third horseman of the apocalypse writing is the constellation of Centaurus in the northern hemisphere, this time of year known as autumn. So let's watch his journey, Centaurus, as he lines up right at the cross of the north-south meridian line and the ecliptic the following month on what is commonly called November 1st of 2020 at high noon. We get to the next month, what is commonly called December 1st of 2020 at high noon, and things have changed in the sky story once again. So we're going to notice that on the eastern horizon, inching toward the cross of the north-south meridian line and the ecliptic, is that very famous centaur, Sagittarius. So this is once again a mythical creature, half man, half horse, and we're going to see if the constellation of Sagittarius is indeed our fourth horseman of the apocalypse riding through the book of Revelation here. So let's go back to the New King James Version of the Bible and read on. Fourth seal, widespread death on earth, beginning with verse 7. When he opened the fourth seal, I heard the voice of the fourth living creature saying, "Come and see." So I looked, and behold, a pale horse. And the name of him who sat on it was Death, and Hades followed with him. And power was given to them over a fourth of the earth, to kill with sword, with hunger, with death, and by the beasts of the earth. Again, this sounds absolutely horrible, and you can see why people have misinterpreted this so badly with the end of the world. But let's plug in the sky story here with the help of our oracle and see if Sagittarius doesn't perfectly fit with the ride of the fourth horseman of the apocalypse. So as it's ending the verse, it says that he who sat, it's the pale horse we're looking at first, right? So keep that in mind as we're going forward. But as it continues, he who sat on it was Death, and Hades followed with him. And power was given over a fourth of the earth, to kill with sword, hunger, and death, and by the beasts of the earth. All of this imagery you can see is representing what is known as the winter season in what is commonly called the Northern Hemisphere, where during that time of the year, plant life dies and animals are scarce. So starvation, hunger, those would be things commonly associated with this time of year, especially back in the day or in ancient times, right? Not the end of the world, or the world, yes, if you're considering that you're looking at the world as the all-seeing eye or this oracle that we've been looking at, but not the end of life here on earth completely, as in end of times, apocalyptic vision, and all of that has been so badly misinterpreted and preached to you for you to believe. So as we go forward, let's confirm for sure that the constellation of Sagittarius is indeed the fourth horseman of the apocalypse, or the end of the world, but not the end of things on earth, as the cycle you will see is going to repeat. As we commonly come to what we call January 1st of 2020 at high noon, you can see that the sun is now at the cross of the north-south meridian line and the ecliptic, along with the constellation of Sagittarius. The two of them being in alignment together would then match the symbolism we're given of Sagittarius being a pale horse. The fourth horse of the apocalypse riding throughout the winter season, as you can see as we go forward to what we commonly call February 1st of 2020 at high noon. But notice that in the east, high above the ecliptic, coming to cross the north-south meridian line and the ecliptic once again, is the first horse of the apocalypse, Pegasus, ready to ride again. These are stories and myths that were given to you for you to believe were something entirely different than what they really are in the reality that exists above all of our heads. The four horsemen of the apocalypse is not about earth ending or any end of times apocalyptic vision. It's just another way for the keeping of time, or a calendar, or a year of the world, when it begins and when it ends. We'll end things here and pick it back up in our next video as we decode yet other mysterious symbols or stories or myths from ancient to modern times, with this very powerful discovery of this oracle and all-seeing eye that up until now has been occulted from all of us and has been hidden over our heads.